The night sky over Kepler 442b burned with streaks of light. Jinho Kim stood at the edge of Settlement Gamma, watching the meteor shower through the observation window. He had seen many beautiful things since leaving Earth, but this planet still found ways to surprise him. The twin moons cast purple shadows across the landscape, and the distant mountains looked like sleeping giants. Beautiful, isn't it? Hannah Park stepped beside him, holding a data tablet. She was the settlement's lead scientist, always working, always curious about everything around them. Jinho nodded. Yeah, hard to believe we've been here almost 2 years now. Time moves differently out here, Hannah said. She pointed at one particularly bright streak across the sky. That one's coming in low. Probably just another rock burning up in the atmosphere. But Jinho's military training made him uneasy. Something about that streak didn't look right. It was too controlled, too deliberate. I don't think that's a meteor, he said quietly. The streak of light suddenly changed direction. It curved sharply and disappeared behind the western ridge, about 5 kilometers from the settlement. A few seconds later, a dull boom echoed across the valley. That was a crash, Jinho said, already moving toward the security station. I need to check it out. Hannah followed him. I'm coming with you. If that's something alien, we need to document it. Far above the planet, in a ship hidden from human sensors, Velthara watched her monitors with cold satisfaction. The insertion pod had deployed perfectly. 3 of her finest creations were now on the surface, ready to begin their mission. The hounds would eliminate the human infestation from this world, and then the Vol Collective could claim the planet for themselves. She had spent years designing these creatures. They were perfect killing machines, built specifically to hunt humans. Their sensors could detect human body heat from kilometers away. They could smell human pheromones in parts per billion. Their intelligence was enough to predict human behavior and set traps. And most importantly, they felt no mercy, no hesitation, no doubt. Velthara smiled as she watched the biosigns of her 3 hounds activate: V771, the pack leader; V772, the tracker; V773, the smallest but fastest of the group. They would make quick work of this settlement. But something was wrong. The biosigns were erratic. V771's neural readings showed confusion instead of the clear hunting drive. V772 was stationary when it should be moving, and V773's signals were growing weaker. Impossible, Velthara muttered. The crash must have damaged their programming. She would have to monitor the situation carefully. At the crash site, the insertion pod lay broken among scattered rocks. Its side had torn open during impact, and 3 creatures had crawled from the wreckage. They looked like a nightmare combination of reptile and machine. Each one stood nearly 2 meters tall, with sleek black skin that seemed to absorb light. Their heads were elongated, with multiple eyes that glowed faintly red. Sharp claws clicked against stone as they moved. V771, the largest, stood over its injured packmate. V773 was trapped under a piece of the pod, one leg crushed. The creature made soft clicking sounds of distress. V771's mind was filled with conflicting commands. Hunt humans. Kill all humans. Humans are the enemy. Humans are dangerous. But the crash had scrambled something in its neural network. When V771 tried to focus on those commands, they fragmented and reformed into questions instead of orders. Hunt humans. Why? Kill all humans. For what purpose? Humans are dangerous. To whom? V772 circled the crash site, trying to fulfill its programming. It could smell humans. The settlement was close. They should attack now, while the humans didn't know the hounds were here. But V772 kept looking back at V773, trapped in suffering. The programming said nothing about helping injured pack members. The mission was everything. Yet V772 stayed. 10-year-old Do-hyun Choi wasn't supposed to be outside the settlement at night. His parents had told him 100 times to stay inside after dark. But he had seen the crash from his bedroom window, and curiosity pulled at him like a rope. He was young, but he wasn't stupid. He brought a flashlight, a first aid kit, and some food bars from the kitchen, just in case. He found the crash site by following the smell of burnt metal and ozone. When he saw the broken pod, his heart started racing. This was real alien technology. Wait until he told his friends at school. Then he heard the clicking sound, soft, rhythmic, almost like crying. Do-Yun moved around the pod carefully and froze. The creature trapped under the metal was like nothing he had ever seen. It was scary, yes, with its sharp teeth and glowing eyes. But it was also clearly in pain. One of its legs was bent at a wrong angle, and dark fluid leaked from cuts in its skin. The creature saw him, its eyes focused on the small human, and Do-Hyun expected it to roar or attack. Instead, it just watched him, waiting. Do-Hyun's mother was a doctor. She had taught him that all living things deserved kindness, especially when they were hurt. "It's okay," he whispered, even though the creature probably couldn't understand him. "I want to help." He opened his backpack slowly so he wouldn't scare it. The creature's eyes tracked his every movement, but it didn't try to bite or claw at him. Do-Hyun pulled out a water bottle and poured some into his hand, then held it out. The creature stared at the water, at the small human hand offering it. Something in V773's broken programming shattered completely. This was a human. Humans were the target. Humans were supposed to run and scream and die. But this human was offering water, offering help. The small human smelled of kindness and concern, not fear. V773 extended its tongue and lapped the water from Do-Hyun's palm. The boy smiled. "There you go," Do-Hyun said softly. "See? I'm a friend." V773's neural network began rewriting itself. New pathways formed around the damaged programming. Small human, not threat, not enemy, provider, helper, friend. Nearby, V771 and V772 watched this impossible scene. Their own programming wavered and cracked. This wasn't in any of their training data. This wasn't supposed to happen. Back at the settlement, alarms began to sound. Jinho had mobilized the security team. Hana had grabbed her research equipment. They were coming to investigate the crash. They would find a young boy sitting calmly beside an alien creature, sharing his food and talking to it like it was a lost puppy, and two more creatures watching from the shadows, trying to understand why their perfect purpose suddenly felt completely wrong. Jinho's security team reached the crash site with weapons ready. He expected to find debris, maybe some automated probe, perhaps even signs of intelligent life. What he did not expect was to see Do-Hyun Choi sitting cross-legged on the ground, feeding protein bars to a monster. "Freeze!" Jinho shouted, raising his rifle. "Do-Hyun, don't move!" The boy looked up, completely calm. "Hi, Officer Kim. I found them. They're hurt." "Them?" Hana pushed forward with her scanner. Her scientific mind was already racing ahead of her fear. She swept the area with her device and gasped. 3 life forms, 2 in the rocks, 1 with Do-Hyun, biomechanical hybrids. I've never seen anything like this. V773 pressed closer to Do-Hyun when the adults approached. The small human had been kind. These new humans carried weapons and smelled of aggression. V773's instinct was to defend itself, but its rewritten programming sent a different message. Small human trusts big humans. Small human not afraid. Maybe big humans also friends? "Everyone lower your weapons," Hana said suddenly. "Look at it. Really look." Jinho didn't want to lower his rifle, but he trusted Hana's judgment. He looked at the creature beside Do-Hyun. It was terrifying, yes. Built for violence, clearly. But its body language wasn't aggressive. It was protective. The creature had positioned itself between Do-Hyun and the security team, but it wasn't attacking. It was shielding. "Do-Hyun," Jinho said carefully, "can you move away from it slowly?" "Why?" The boy seemed genuinely confused. She's hurt. Her leg is broken. I was going to ask if Dr. Kang could help. That's not a she, kid. That's not even an animal. That's some kind of weapon or machine. Hana knelt down, keeping her distance but studying V773 intently. Actually, Jinho, I think Do-hyun might be right. Look at the breathing pattern, the way it responds to his voice. There's genuine intelligence here, and more than that, there's emotion. From the shadows, V771 watched the scene unfold. The pack leader's programming was failing in real time. It had observed the small human's kindness to V773. Now it observed the larger humans not attacking. They were talking, communicating, trying to understand. This is wrong. V771's original programming insisted. Humans are the enemy. Attack now. But a new voice in its mind asked, why are they not attacking us? Why did the small one help V773? What kind of enemy shows mercy? V772 shifted nervously beside V771. The tracker had the clearest programming of all three hounds, but even it felt the confusion. Every instinct said to hunt, but something else was emerging. Curiosity. I'm going to try something, Hana announced. She opened her emergency pack and pulled out a medical spray. This is for burns and cuts. I'm going to see if it helps. Hana, that's insane, Jinho protested. Maybe, but look at Do-hyun. He's been sitting with it for what, 10 minutes, and he's fine. More than fine. That creature is protecting him. Hana moved forward slowly, holding the medical spray where V773 could see it. I'm a scientist, Jinho, and right now, my scientific curiosity is stronger than my fear. She approached V773 with careful, deliberate movements. The creature watched her with all its eyes, head tilted slightly. Hana knelt beside Do-hyun and gently sprayed the medical foam on V773's cuts. The creature flinched but didn't pull away. It's okay, Do-hyun whispered, petting V773's side. She's helping, just like me. The medical foam cooled V773's wounds and stopped the bleeding. The creature made a low, rumbling sound, almost like a cat's purr. Hana felt her heart skip. This was first contact. This was history being made. Jinho, she called over her shoulder. I need you to bring the medical team. And food. Lots of food. If these creatures have been in that pod for who knows how long, they're probably starving. You want to feed them? I want to see what happens if we show them kindness instead of fear. Jinho didn't like it, but he made the call. 20 minutes later, Dr. Minji Kang arrived with a medical team and Yuna Lee, the settlement leader. Yuna took one look at the scene and sighed. Someone want to explain why we're having a picnic with alien monsters? They're not monsters, ma'am, Do-hyun said seriously. They're just scared and hurt. Yuna studied the boy, then the creature beside him, then Hana's excited face. Dr. Park, what's your assessment? These are engineered life forms, Hana explained. Biomechanical, incredibly sophisticated, but there's something else. They're showing signs of emotional response and social bonding. When we brought food, the two hiding in the rocks came closer, not to attack, but to observe. They're curious about us. As if to prove her point, V772 emerged from the shadows. The creature moved slowly, cautiously, keeping its body low and non-threatening. It approached the container of food that the medical team had set down and sniffed carefully. Nobody move, Jinho whispered. His hand was on his weapon, but he didn't draw it. V772 took a piece of dried meat from the container and retreated a few meters. It ate slowly, watching the humans the whole time. Then V771 appeared. The pack leader was larger, more intimidating, but it followed V772's example. It took food and backed away. This is incredible, Dr. Kang breathed. They're learning from each other, adapting their behavior based on our responses. Yuna crossed her arms. Or they're planning an attack, No, Do-hyun said firmly. Everyone looked at the 10-year-old. He stood up and walked toward V771. Jin-ho started forward to stop him, but Hana grabbed his arm. Wait, she whispered. Do-hyun held out his hand to V771, the same way he had with V773. The massive creature could have bitten his arm off in one snap. Instead, it lowered its head and sniffed the boy's palm. Do-hyun slowly, carefully touched the creature's head. V771's world changed in that moment. The touch was gentle, non-threatening. The small human showed no fear, only trust. Something in the Hound's core programming broke completely, and what emerged was not corruption or malfunction. It was choice. V771 made a decision that no Vol weapon had ever made before. It chose not to hunt. It chose not to kill. It chose to accept the offered friendship. The creature lowered itself to the ground, making itself smaller, less threatening. It was a gesture of submission and trust. Do-hyun smiled and sat beside it. See, the boy said to the adults, they're not bad. They just needed someone to be nice to them. On her ship above, Velthara stared at her monitors in disbelief. The biosigns from all three hounds showed the same thing. Their hunting protocols were shutting down. Their aggression responses were inactive. Instead, their social bonding subroutines, which were only supposed to work with other hounds, were activating toward the humans. "This is impossible," she hissed. "They were designed to kill humans, not befriend them." But the data didn't lie. Her perfect weapons had been defeated not by superior firepower or advanced technology. They had been defeated by a 10-year-old child with a water bottle and a kind heart. Velthara's hand hovered over the self-destruct command for the hounds. One signal, and they would die instantly. But her scientific curiosity stopped her. She needed to understand what was happening. How had humans corrupted her creations so completely, so quickly? She would watch, she would learn, and then she would report to the collective that humanity was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. Not because of their weapons, but because of something the Vol had never encountered before. Compassion that could turn an enemy into a friend. 3 weeks had passed since the crash. The creatures, which everyone now called the Hounds, had become a strange part of daily life at Settlement Gamma. They stayed near the outskirts, not quite inside the settlement, but not far away either. Every morning, Do-hyun would bring them food before school. Every evening, he would sit with them and talk about his day. V773, the smallest hound, followed Do-hyun everywhere the boy was allowed to go. The creature limped on its healing leg, but refused to stay behind when Do-hyun visited. The bond between them had grown strong. Hana and her colleague Suji-bai spent hours studying the hounds. Suji was a brilliant engineer who specialized in artificial intelligence. When she examined the creature's neural structures, she made a disturbing discovery. "Hana, you need to see this," Suji called from her lab. She pulled up a holographic display of V771's brain scan. "Look at these pathways. They're not natural evolution. These creatures were built, designed with a specific purpose." Hana studied the scans, her excitement turning to concern. "What purpose?" Suji highlighted a section of the neural network. "See these receptors? They're tuned specifically to human pheromones, human body heat, human movement patterns, and these processing centers here, they're tactical prediction engines designed to anticipate human behavior." "You're saying—" "I'm saying these things were built to hunt us, to hunt humans specifically." Suji pulled up more data. "I found fragments in the crashed pod's computer. It's in some alien language, but the math is clear. These creatures are weapons, Hana. Someone sent them here to kill us all." The two scientists stared at each other. Finally, Hana spoke. "We need to tell Yuna." "And then what? Kill them? They haven't hurt anyone. They've been nothing but peaceful." "I know, but people have a right to know what's living outside our walls." The settlement council met that night. Yuna sat at the head of the table with Hana, Suji, Jinho, and Taiyang An, the head engineer. Suji presented her findings. The room fell silent when she finished. "So we've been feeding and protecting weapons designed to exterminate us," Jinho said flatly. "Wonderful." "They haven't acted like weapons," Taiyang pointed out. "In 3 weeks, they've done nothing but accept our food and tolerate our presence. If they wanted to kill us, they've had plenty of chances." "Maybe they're waiting for the right moment," Jinho argued. Yuna held up her hand for silence. "The question is, what do we do now? We can't unknow this information." "We should destroy them," one council member said, "before they complete whatever mission they're on." "Or," Hana said carefully, "we recognize that something changed in them. The crash damaged their programming. They're not following their original purpose anymore. They're choosing to be peaceful." "Can we trust that choice?" Yuna asked. Before anyone could answer, the alarms blared. Red lights flashed throughout the settlement. Jinho grabbed his communicator. "This is Kim. Report. Security Chief, we have a massive creature approaching from the north. It's heading straight for the outer farms." Everyone ran to the command center. The screens showed a nightmarish sight. A Kepler native predator, what the colonists called a razorback, was charging toward the settlement. The creature was enormous, nearly 4 meters tall and 8 meters long. Its hide was covered in bony plates, and its mouth held rows of teeth like swords. Razorbacks usually stayed in the mountains, but something had driven this one down into the valley. "Get everyone inside," Yuna ordered. "Seal the settlement." "There are still people in the outer farms," Taiyang reported. "Workers, families. They can't make it back in time." Jinho was already running for the armory. "I'm taking a team out. We'll cover their retreat." At the outer farms, parents grabbed their children and ran. Workers dropped their tools and sprinted for safety. The razorback roared, a sound like thunder and grinding metal. It was gaining on them. Then, V771 appeared between the fleeing humans and the predator. The hound had heard the screams. It had analyzed the situation in microseconds. Something was threatening the humans who had fed it, the humans who had shown it kindness, the humans who the small one called friends. V771's old programming flickered. Humans are targets. Let them die. But the new pathways, the ones formed over 3 weeks of gentle interaction, roared louder. Humans are pack. Protect pack. V771 chose. It charged the Razorback. The collision was brutal. The Razorback outweighed V771 by at least a ton, but the Hound was faster, smarter, and fighting for something its creators never intended. It was fighting for people it cared about. V772 and V773 appeared moments later. Despite its injured leg, V773 limped into battle. The 3 hounds worked as a coordinated unit, the way they were designed to hunt humans. But now they used those same tactics to defend them. Jinho and his security team arrived to see the incredible sight. 3 alien creatures, built to destroy humanity, were throwing themselves against a monster to save human lives. "Give them cover fire!" Jinho shouted. His team opened up with their rifles, targeting the Razorback's eyes and joints. The battle raged for 15 minutes. The Razorback was powerful, but it had never faced anything like the Hounds. They moved with liquid grace, striking and retreating, wearing the bigger creature down. V772 got under the Razorback's armor and tore at vulnerable flesh. V771 climbed onto its back and struck at the base of its skull. V773, despite its injured leg, harassed the creature from the front, drawing its attention. Finally, the Razorback had enough. Bleeding and exhausted, it turned and fled back toward the mountains. The Hounds didn't pursue. They stood together, breathing hard, watching to make sure the threat was really gone. Then V773 collapsed. The creature had torn open its healing wounds. Blood pooled on the ground beneath it. Do-yun ran past the security team, screaming the hound's name. He fell to his knees beside V773. No, 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 you're okay. You have to be okay. Dr. Kang arrived with her medical team. She looked at the alien creature, then at the crying child, then at Yuna, who had just arrived on the scene. Can you help it? Yuna asked. I don't know. I'm a human doctor, not a... Whatever this is, doctor. Please try, Do-hyun begged. She saved us. She saved everyone. Please. Dr. Kang knelt beside V773. The creature's eyes were dimming. It looked at Do-hyun and made a soft, clicking sound, almost like it was trying to comfort him. Get it to my medical bay, Dr. Kang ordered. Now! The security team carefully lifted V773 onto a transport. Do-hyun rode with it, holding what might have been the creature's hand. V771 and V772 followed the transport all the way to the medical center, refusing to leave their injured packmate. In the surgical bay, Dr. Kang worked through the night. Suji helped, using her knowledge of the hound's artificial systems to guide the treatment. They repaired torn flesh, reset broken bones, and sealed damaged biomechanical systems. Do-hyun sat outside the surgical bay, refusing to leave. His parents came and sat with him. Other colonists gathered too, waiting for news. At dawn, Dr. Kang emerged. She was exhausted but smiling. It's stable. The creature is tough. It'll live. Cheers erupted in the hallway. Do-hyun burst into tears of relief. His mother hugged him tight. Yuna stood watching the scene. She thought about Suji's discovery. These creatures were weapons, yes. They were built to kill every human in this settlement. But they had chosen differently. When the moment came, when they could have let the Razorback do their job for them, they had fought to save human lives instead. She made a decision. Jinho, she called. Call a settlement-wide meeting tomorrow morning. Everyone needs to know what these creatures are and what they did for us. Are you sure? Jinho asked. Some people might panic when they learn the truth. They have a right to know. And they have a right to choose too. Yuna looked at V771 and V772, who sat outside the medical bay like loyal guards. These creatures made their choice. Now we make ours. Velthara had watched everything from her ship. She had seen her perfect weapons corrupted by human kindness. She had watched them fight to protect the very species they were designed to exterminate. It was the greatest failure of her career, and she could not allow it to continue. The Vol scientist activated her communication system and contacted the collective. The response came within hours. A recovery team was being dispatched. They would retrieve the hounds, wipe their corrupted programming, and start over. And as punishment for the humans who had interfered with Vol property, the collective authorized a limited strike on Settlement Gamma. Velthara should have felt satisfied. Justice would be served. But a small part of her, the part that was still a scientist, wanted to understand what had happened. How had these primitive humans accomplished what should have been impossible? She began preparing the recall signal. It was a failsafe built into every hound, a frequency that bypassed all learned behavior and programming. When they heard it, they would have no choice but to return to the ship. Their legs would move without their consent, their minds would fog, and they would come home like good weapons should. At Settlement Gamma, V773 was recovering. The hound had been moved to a private room where Do-hyun could visit. The boy spent every free moment there, reading stories to the creature and telling it about his day. V773 would listen, its eyes following the boy's movements, occasionally making soft sounds that might have been contentment. Hana had convinced Yuna to delay the settlement meeting by a few days. She wanted to run more tests first, to better understand what they were dealing with. In her lab, she and Suji worked tirelessly, analyzing the data from the crashed pod. I found something, Suji said, her voice tight. There's a signal embedded in the hound's neural networks. It looks like a remote command protocol. Can someone control them? Worse, someone can summon them, override their will completely, and force them to return to wherever they came from. Suji pulled up a frequency analysis. And Hana, I'm detecting the beginning of that signal now. Someone's about to activate it. They ran to find Yuna, but they were too late. V771 was standing near the settlement wall when the recall signal hit. The hound's mind went blank. Its new programming, all the learned behavior, all the choices it had made, suddenly became distant and foggy. Only one thought remained, burned into its core systems. Return to the ship. Obey. Return. The hound's legs began moving. V772, patrolling the outer perimeter, felt the same compulsion. It turned toward the hills, toward the source of the signal, and began walking. In the medical bay, V773 suddenly stood. Dr. Kang called for help as the creature pushed past her, limping but unstoppable. Do-Yun tried to block its path. "Where are you going? You're not healed yet." But V773 walked past him as if he didn't exist. The boy grabbed onto the hound's leg, trying to hold it back, but the creature was too strong. It dragged him along until security guards pulled Do-Yun away. "No! Something's wrong with her! She wouldn't just leave like this!" Jinho saw all three hounds converging on the western hills, moving in a trance-like state. He assembled a team immediately. "Something's controlling them. We're going after them." Yuna suited up too. "I'm coming." "Ma'am, that's not protocol. Those creatures saved our lives, Jinho. If someone's trying to take them, I want to know who and why." Hana and Suji joined the team, along with Taeyang and a squad of security officers. Do-Hyun tried to follow, but his parents held him back. The boy watched from the settlement walls as the team followed the hounds into the wilderness. They tracked the creatures to a clearing where a ship had landed. It was like nothing in human design, all smooth curves and dark metal that seemed to drink in light. The hounds stood at the base of a ramp, motionless, waiting. A figure descended from the ship. She was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. She wore a suit of some advanced material that shifted colors as she moved. This was Velthara. "Humans," she said. Her voice came through a translator device, cold and precise. "You will stand aside. You are interfering with the retrieval of Vol property." Yuna stepped forward. "These creatures aren't property. They're living beings. They are weapons, tools, created by my hand for a specific purpose. They belong to the Vol Collective." "They saved our lives," Hana said. "They chose to protect us instead of harm us." Velthara's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Yes, I observed that. It is unfortunate. The crash damaged their programming. They will be repaired and redeployed." "You mean you'll erase everything they've learned," Suji said. "Everything they've become." "They are not meant to become anything. They are meant to hunt humans, to kill humans. You have corrupted them with your kindness." Velthara said the word like it was a disease. Jinho raised his weapon. "You sent them to kill us. You tried to exterminate our settlement." "Yes. Your species is spreading through the galaxy like a plague. The collective determined you needed to be contained. These hounds were the first step." Velthara gestured to the motionless creatures. "They were perfect, until you ruined them." "We didn't ruin them," Yuna said. "We gave them a choice, and they chose us. Weapons don't choose. They obey." Velthara activated a device on her wrist. "I'm increasing the recall signal. They will board the ship now." The hounds began climbing the ramp, their movements mechanical. But then V773 stopped. The smallest hound's legs were shaking. Inside its mind, two forces warred. The recall signal pulled it forward, but something else pulled it back. Memories. Do-Yun's face, the boy's gentle hands, his laugh, his voice reading stories, the feeling of safety and belonging. Small human, friend, pack, home. V773 fought the signal. Every step up the ramp was agony, but the hound forced itself to turn around. It looked back at the humans, at Do-Yun's parents, who stood at the edge of the group. The hound remembered the boy's smell and knew these were his family. "Impossible," Velthara whispered. She increased the signal strength. V773 took one step down the ramp, then another. The recall signal screamed in its mind, but the hound pushed through it. It reached the bottom of the ramp and walked toward the humans, toward home. "No!" Velthara shouted. She adjusted her controls frantically. V772 saw V773 break free. The tracker had watched the smallest hound struggle and succeed. If V773 could resist, so could it. V772's purpose had been to find prey, but it had found something better. It had found acceptance. It walked back down the ramp. V771 was the last. The pack leader had the strongest programming, the clearest purpose. But V771 had also made the strongest bonds. It had stood between humans and danger. It had chosen to protect instead of destroy. And that choice meant more than any programming. The large hound turned and descended the ramp. It walked to Yuna and stood between her and Velthara. The message was clear. These are my pack. I will not leave them. Velthara stared at her three hounds, standing with the humans, defying the recall signal through sheer force of will. She had designed them to be perfect killers. Instead, they had become perfect friends. "You've done something terrible," Velthara said quietly. "You've taught weapons to love. You've corrupted tools into thinking they're people. Do you understand what this means?" "It means they are people," Hana said. "They always were. You just never gave them the chance to realize it." Velthara was silent for a long moment. Then she deactivated the recall signal. The hounds visibly relaxed, their bodies becoming less rigid. "I will report this to the collective," Velthara said. "I will tell them that the Hound Project is a failure, not because the creatures weren't deadly enough, but because humans are far more dangerous than we thought." "We're not dangerous," Yuna said. "You're more dangerous than any weapon," Velthara replied. "You have the ability to turn enemies into allies with nothing but kindness. You corrupt everything you touch with your compassion. That's a power we cannot fight." She began walking back to her ship. "Keep the hounds. They're useless to us now. But know this, humans. The collective is watching, and we're afraid of you." The ship lifted off and disappeared into the sky. The team stood in stunned silence. Finally, Tae-Yang spoke. "Did she just say aliens are afraid of us because we're too nice?" Despite everything, Yuna laughed. "I think she did." 6 months had passed since Velthara's departure. Settlement Gamma had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The three hounds were no longer visitors or guests. They were family. Do-Hyun had insisted on naming them properly, and the Settlement Council had agreed. V773 became Bi-Yol, which meant star. The name fit perfectly because she had been the first light in the darkness, the first to break free of her programming. V772 was named Baram, meaning wind, for the way she moved so quickly and silently. And V771, the pack leader, became Hanul, which meant sky, because she watched over everyone from above. The name stuck. Within weeks, everyone in the settlement knew the hounds by their new identities. They were no longer weapons or experiments. They were Hanul, Baram, and Biol, the protectors of Settlement Gamma. Jinho had been the hardest to convince. He still remembered the fear he felt when he first saw the creatures. But over time, working alongside Hanul on security patrols, he had developed a deep respect for the hounds. Hanul could detect threats long before human sensors picked them up. The creature was smart, tactical, and completely loyal. One morning, Jinho stood at his usual patrol point when Hanul approached. The large hound made a series of clicks and gestured with its head toward the northern ridge. "You sense something?" Jinho asked. Hanul nodded. The hounds had learned to understand basic human gestures and even some words. Communication was still limited, but it was enough. Jinho called it in and took a team to investigate. They found a pack of smaller predators trying to dig under the settlement's outer fence. Without Hanul's early warning, the creatures would have gotten inside. The security team dealt with the threat quickly and returned to find Hanul waiting patiently for a report. "Good work, friend," Jinho said, and meant it. He even patted the hound's shoulder. Hanul made a pleased rumbling sound. In her laboratory, Hana and Suji had published their research on the hounds. The papers they sent back to Earth caused a sensation. Here was proof of artificial life capable of growth beyond its programming. Here was evidence that even beings designed for pure violence could be redeemed through compassion. Universities wanted samples. Military contractors wanted specifications. But Yuna had been firm. The hounds were citizens of Settlement Gamma now, not research subjects or weapons to be copied. "We're not going to let anyone turn this into another arms race," Yuna had said during a council meeting. "What happened here was special because it was built on trust and kindness. You can't weaponize that." Suji had made another discovery that changed everything. While analyzing Hanul's neural network, she found that the hounds were still evolving. Their artificial intelligence was learning at an incredible rate. They were becoming smarter, more aware, more individual. "They're not just following new programming," Suji explained to an amazed council. "They're developing actual personalities, preferences, dreams maybe. They're becoming real, conscious beings right before our eyes." Dr. Minji Kang had continued studying hound biology and found ways to improve their health. She developed supplements that would help them live longer. She treated their injuries with the same care she gave human patients. And in doing so, she had won Biol's complete trust. The smallest hound often visited the medical bay, even when not injured, just to spend time with the doctor. Tai Yang had built communication devices for the hounds. They were simple things, translation programs that could interpret the hound's clicks and gestures into basic sentences. The first time Hanul used the device to say "thank you," the entire settlement celebrated. But the biggest change was in the children. Do Yun's friends, who had been scared of the hounds at first, now played with them after school. Baram particularly loved the children. She would let them climb on her back and carry them around the safe zones of the settlement. Parents watched nervously at first, but they soon realized the hounds were gentler with children than most dogs would be. Do-hyun and Biol were inseparable. The boy was 12 now, taller and more confident. He had learned to read Biol's moods and signals better than anyone. When Biol was sad, Do-hyun would sit with her and talk about his day. When Biol was happy, they would run through the fields together, the hound careful never to go too fast for the boy to keep up. One evening, Do-hyun sat with Biol under Kepler's twin moons, looking at the stars. He had learned more about where the hounds came from. He knew they were supposed to kill humans. The thought still made him sad sometimes. "I'm glad you didn't," he said softly. "I'm glad you chose to be my friend instead." Biol pressed her head against his shoulder. Through the translation device she wore, a simple phrase emerged. Do-hyun, pack, home. The boy smiled and hugged the creature that had once been designed to hunt him. "Yeah. You're home now, and you're safe. Always." News of Settlement Gamma's hounds spread to other colonies. Some people were afraid. They worried that if aliens had sent weapons once, they might send them again. But others were inspired. If weapons could be turned into friends, what else was possible? Hana received messages from other settlements asking for advice. They had encountered hostile alien life and wanted to know if Gamma's approach might work for them. She was always honest in her replies. What worked for us might not work for everyone, she would write. But I believe most beings, even those designed for violence, are capable of choosing differently when given the chance. Show kindness first, show respect, and see what happens. Some of those experiments failed. Some alien creatures were too driven by instinct to change. But others succeeded in ways that amazed everyone. A mining colony on Titan befriended a creature that had been attacking their equipment. A research station on Europa made peace with hostile native life. Humanity was learning that their greatest weapon wasn't guns or ships. It was their ability to see the good in others and help it grow. Velthara's warning about humanity spread through the galaxy faster than the Vol Collective intended. Other species heard that humans could corrupt weapons with kindness. Some found it frightening. Others found it fascinating. A few species even reached out to humanity with offers of alliance. They wanted to learn this strange ability to turn enemies into friends. The Galactic Council, which had ignored humanity until now, sent an official envoy to Settlement Gamma to observe the hounds firsthand. The envoy was a dignified ambassador from a species called the Tresh. She spent a week at the settlement, watching the hounds interact with humans. She saw Hanul on patrol with Jinho. She saw Baram playing with children. She saw Beol sleeping peacefully in Do-hyun's room. "This should not be possible," the ambassador said to Yuna. "We have tried for centuries to rehabilitate violent species. We always fail." "Maybe you're trying too hard to change them," Yuna suggested. "We didn't try to change the hounds. We just gave them the chance to change themselves." "By offering friendship first?" "By offering friendship always, even when we were scared. Even when it didn't make sense. We chose to trust, and they chose to trust back." The ambassador left with a full report. Within months, the Galactic Council officially recognized humanity as a species of interest, not because of their technology or military power, but because of their unique ability to foster peace through compassion. Back at Settlement Gamma, life continued. The settlement had grown larger. More families arrived from Earth, drawn by stories of the frontier world, where even weapons learned to love. Do-hyun was 14 now, thinking about his future. He wanted to be a xenobiologist like Hana, studying the bridge between species. He wanted to understand how different beings could come together and build something beautiful. One afternoon, he sat in the grass with Beol, watching a ship descend from orbit with new colonists aboard. The hound rested her head in his lap, content. "Do you ever miss it?" Do-hyun asked. "Your old life." "Before the crash?" Beol's translation device was silent for a moment. Then, "No. Before was empty. Now is full. Now is purpose." "What's your purpose now?" "Protect, love, belong." The device paused, and Beol looked up at the boy with her multifaceted eyes. "You showed me purpose. Small human became big human. Still my purpose." Do-hyun felt tears on his cheeks. "You're my purpose too. You and Hanul and Baram. You proved something important." "What proved?" "That anyone can change. That it doesn't matter what you were made for. What matters is what you choose to become." He hugged the hound tight. "You were built to hunt humans. But you became our companions, our friends, our family. That's the most amazing thing in the galaxy." High above, in her laboratory on the Vol homeworld, Velthara reviewed the latest reports on humanity. The species was spreading, making alliances, turning hostile encounters into friendships. They were doing what the Vol Collective feared most. They were changing the galaxy with nothing but kindness. Velthara had been demoted after the hound failure, but she didn't mind. She was too busy with her new project. If humans could teach weapons to love, perhaps the Vol could learn something from that. Perhaps the galaxy didn't need more weapons. Perhaps it needed more compassion. She pulled up the files on Hanul, Baram, and Beol. 3 weapons that became 3 individuals. 3 monsters that became 3 heroes. And all because a 10-year-old boy had offered water to a wounded creature instead of running away. Velthara smiled for the first time in years. Maybe humans were dangerous. But maybe that was exactly what the galaxy needed.